What is up, everybody? Yes, it is week one of the NFL season. We are just a few short days away from the 49ers versus the Jets Monday Night Football. And that means Behind Enemy Lines is back, and I have a fantastic guest for y'all. Cannot wait to get this thing started. We're going to hit it all next. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And it's Behind Enemy Lines night, which means I've got my guest of the week, Matt O'Leary from Just Jets and Talking Jets is in the house. Matt, my guy, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me on. Very excited to chop it up with you, talk some Jets 49ers for this highly anticipated week one matchup.
Yeah, this is a good one, man. It's interesting because we know that the 49ers have Super Bowl aspirations. They're knocking on the door year after year. And the Jets haven't been to the playoffs for a while, but I know there's a ton of optimism coming from that fan base. I've been seeing it for a few weeks. I got Jets fans in my chat trolling me. Y'all are very, very excited for this season. And I think that the roster is on point. There's some question marks, maybe with some age and injury, but there is a reason for optimism for the New York Jets. So this is an early test for both teams. I'm very, very excited about this one.
Yeah, you said it. I mean, look at the 49ers the last few years, deep playoff runs, came up just short a year ago, and very well coached team with Kyle Shanahan and Jets head coach Robert Saleh. Obviously, you're very familiar with and what he did over there. But yeah, I'm very excited for this one and for this season. As you pointed out, the Jets playoff drought, 13 straight years, no playoffs, longest active streak in all the four major sports. It's been a long time for Jets fans. So I apologize for the Jets fans in the chat. It's been a really long time. We're really excited and really don't know what to do with ourselves in a way.
Yeah. I don't know what to do with my hands. I'm so excited. All right, brother. Listen, I know Jets fans are really, really excited, but I've heard some mixed reviews coming out of training camp, and it just depends on who's covering this team. I do feel like Aaron Rodgers has put himself in a position where he's so polarizing, and I think people write articles about him just to hate and act as if he's not a leader, and I don't know if that's the case or not. So I want to hear from you. What is the off-season vibe coming from the Jets and the beat writers and everybody in the building? What is the feeling coming out of that place?
Yeah, it's very, very positive. And really the only negatives, as you said, it really seems to come from the national media trying to, spin a story with Aaron Rodgers. And I think a lot of that stems from, his opinion on things off the field. And a lot of people don't like him for that. But he has ever since coming to the New York Jets, I can't speak for his final years in Green Bay, but he has been a leader with the Jets. The team voted him the most inspiring player last year when he was trying to make the comeback. It's not like that was just, anointed by the Jets organization. Like, his teammates are very well respected. I think the mini camp got blown way out of proportion from the national media. But the team loves him. And he's looked really good in training camp coming back off the Achilles, which I know a lot of Jet fans, myself included, are going to be kind of holding our breath here in week one and just to make sure he gets through a game. And there's definitely some question marks with the injury concern at his age, but if he's anything close to what we saw in training camp, Jet fans are excited for all the right reasons. So positive signs out of camp from Rodgers and this team.
What about the Haason Reddick situation? Is that put a damper on things at all? That is the most bizarre situation I may have ever seen. Trading for a player that's looking for a contract, but when he came to the Jets, I've heard that he was fine, kind of being on a prove-it deal, and then he wasn't fine. What the heck is going on there?
Yeah, that's really the only, black cloud in a way, if you like. That even might be a little bit dramatic, black cloud, but because the vibes are still high even without Haason Reddick. But that feels like the last missing thing for Jet fans to have a full sigh of relief. Like, okay, it's going to be, we're going to be in a good spot here. But very strange. As you mentioned, they do the Haason Reddick trade with no contract in place. Instead, it seems like both sides are comfortable with it playing out on that final year. Something has changed going back to OTAs and minicamp. Haason Reddick didn't report then, and he still hasn't reported. I think, honestly, there's some blame to go for both sides here. I think the Jets are being a little bit too stubborn. They won't even talk to him unless he's in the building. And from Reddick's side, I understand he wants to get paid. I agree that he is underpaid, but at the same time, I don't know what the benefit is for him holding out into the season in a contract year at his age. Like at 30, 31 years old, you have one more last chance here. And if you miss time into the regular season, I don't know how that helps his next deal, whether it's with the Jets or somewhere else in free agency in 2025.
Well, I'll tell you the vibe coming out of the 49ers offseason. You would think, listen, this is a team that's primed to go to a Super Bowl. It's the final year of this group being together. They're chasing something special. I went to training camp last year, and I went to training camp this year. And maybe it's because Ayuk wasn't there and Trent wasn't there. But last year, man, there was a buzz around this team. This team felt like it was the best team in the league. There was something special happening there, and you could feel it. It was palpable. This year, not so much the case, man. When I was at training camp, the vibe was a little off. It felt a little down. Everybody was on Ayuk watch. It just seemed like something was off. And I wasn't the only one to notice it. There were some other content creators in the area that were talking about it as well. There have been some bigger reporters and national media guys that have talked about it a little bit. Now, that doesn't mean that the 49ers aren't going to be ready to go. Doesn't mean that they can't go out and win. But everybody talks about a Super Bowl hangover. And I will say, I don't know exactly what that is, but it feels like this might be it. Things are a little bit off during this offseason, but the last week, of course, getting Ayuk, getting Trent, now getting CMC, vibes are right back on point. This team seems primed and ready to go. I just hope that it's not too little too late for a week one matchup in primetime against the Jets.
Yeah. So from the Jets perspective on that, while we were dealing with the Haason Reddick holdout and following along with that, the silver lining it was, well, the 49ers might be without Trent Williams, who I think is without a doubt the best left tackle in the sport, and without Ayuk, who's their unquestioned number one receiver. So that would be a really big deal. And then the Ayuk domino falls, and then Trent Williams comes back. And, for me with Williams in particular, like he's a veteran. If the game was tonight, I think he'd be able to show up and just play. Like he's been in the system for 5 years. I think he's going to have that strong impact right away out of the gate. So, from the Jets side of it, like I'm not looking at them reporting late as, oh, this is somehow going to be spun into an advantage because they're rusty. Like I don't think that's going to be the case. I think they're going to be the guys that we know that they have been so far in their career.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how that plays out because, last year we know Bosa's in phenomenal shape at all times, but it was around this time that he signed with the team and came back, and he admitted, I was a little off. I know I was in great shape, but not playing football. It took me about 5 weeks to get up to speed. I just hope that's not the case with Ayuk, Trent, and, CMC was a part of that as well. He missed most of training camp and preseason. He hasn't been there for a while with a calf injury. He is back now, but that's 3 big-time players that really have put together no practice or game prep. So I'm curious to see how it plays out ultimately. I think it's going to be a great game. We'll get into it a little bit more, but I got the resident troll in the chat, Brother Bob. He says, A-Rod ain't ish. You know it. Matt, he's whack. You can get this L. All right. He's gonna talk all night long. Just be ready for that. All right. Dave says, Brother Bob firing it up. Jets are weak. Trade Kyle. He's not a big Kyle Shanahan fan. And then Brother Bob says the only thing that's off is the Jets fan touching a Super Bowl. All right. Okay. It has been a while since they made the playoffs. That is a fact. Okay, Matt, I do have a question for you about some of the maybe unsung heroes of this team or guys that fly under the radar a little bit. It's fun for me to learn about rosters because what happens is everybody knows the big time players. Everybody understands who Aaron Rodgers is and Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams and all the big time guys, right? But there's always other players that make a difference in a game and make a difference in a season. So give me a player or two that Jets fans are excited about that maybe the rest of the league hasn't quite heard of yet or doesn't know how good this player is.
Yeah, so I'll give you one on each side of the ball here on the offense and defense. So offensively, you just mentioned, like, obviously Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, they get a lot of the recognition, and deservedly so, with especially the young guys with how well they performed early in their first 2 years. But someone who I think is going to have a bigger year than what we've seen the last couple for the Jets is the tight end, Tyler Conklin. I don't think he's someone that gets talked about a lot, but if you look at his numbers, I think he's actually produced, okay, considering the situation that he's dealt with. He's been top half of the league in both receptions and receiving yards for tight ends the last 2 years, and that's dealing with Zach Wilson, Trevor Siemian, Mike White, Joe Flacco. The list goes on and on and on. And I think we've seen a lot in Aaron Rodgers' career that he does like to feature the tight end. And we saw a year, not all that long ago, Robert Tonyan had 10 receiving touchdowns. I don't know if it gets that high for Tyler Conklin, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if he ends up top 3 in receptions for the Jets this year behind just Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. Those two will be featured the most, but I think Conklin's going to be a sneaky safety blanket offensively there. And then defensively, I'll give you a name as well, someone who doesn't get maybe as much credit, but he was just in the news yesterday, Michael Carter II. He got a new contract from the New York Jets, made the highest paid slot corner in the sport. When anyone mentions the Jets cornerback room, it seems like it's, DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner, and they mentioned the cornerback duo, and those two guys, they're great. They're one of the best corner duos in the game, but I think it's unfair to leave out Michael Carter because I view him as one of the 3 best slot corners in the sport, if not after last year, maybe the best slot corner in the NFL. So I think he has to be included in that conversation. And when you just get, some of the bigger names and the linebackers in there as well, he kind of ends up being a forgotten guy. But, slot corner in today's league is such an important and valuable position. And I think he deserves the recognition too.
Well, and he just got a big time payday. I think he got a payday that made him the top paid slot corner in the league. So sounds like they agree with you. He'll be there for quite some time, and Sauce isn't going to be far behind him. We saw that Patrick Surtain got paid as well. I'm sure Sauce will be up for a big contract next year. I'll give you 2 names as well, one on the offense, one on the defense. You got Jordan Mason, a.k.a. JP Mason. You may hear him called that. Running back, backup running back. Now, Elijah Mitchell has been a staple of this team for a few years now, and he had been the backup, but he's done for the year. We're sad that he's gone, but at the same time, JP Mason is a guy that we've been wanting to get on the field more and more and more over the last couple of years. He only has 83 career carries, but he averages 5.6 yards per carry. And I'm telling you, he looks and runs just like Marshawn Lynch. He's bow-legged. He's big. He's physical. He's got the dreads hanging out of the back of the helmet. He's very light on his feet. Just a bulldozer. And Christian McCaffrey coming off of an injury. Also, Kyle Shanahan said that he wants to make a conscious effort for Christian McCaffrey to not touch the ball near as much this year because he wants to save him and make sure he stays healthy. JP Mason, I think, can be a big factor not only in this game, but this season as well. And the reason he wasn't on the field a lot the last couple of years is because he wasn't a great blocker and he didn't understand his assignments as far as a receiver. He worked a ton on both of those this offseason. They absolutely showed in the preseason and during training camp. I think he can be a difference maker in this game and in the season. And then the other one on defense, look, a lot of great players on this defense, but I think a player that might be going under the radar a little bit for the San Francisco 49ers, Jair Brown, second-year safety. He filled in late for Talanoa Hufanga. He's going to be starting this year. He is an absolute stud. He can play single high. He can play in the box. Really instinctual player, good hitter, very, very good player. I think he will have an impact on this game and in this season as well. So those are my two under the radar San Francisco 49ers.
I love it. Yeah, I think the running back is an interesting call out, especially because you mentioned McCaffrey coming off the injury. And I'm curious how much he's utilized in this game. And sounds like he complements the skill set that McCaffrey has. Similar, just to make the comparison on the Jet side, they just drafted Braylon Allen this year out of Wisconsin, who's a little bit of a bigger back and a bruising force. So going from that guy who's, has a little bit more top end speed and is a receiving back to that bruiser, I think is, something that maybe the Jets are copycatting from the 49ers play.
Absolutely. Dave says, Jets whole team is off, BB. What are you talking about? And then Brother Bob comes in and says, oh, Lord, he's praising a mid tight end. Kittle will smash. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, mid is a little harsh. Look, I'm not saying that he's George Kittle. George Kittle's and Travis Kelce been the two best tight ends in a while, but I'm just saying he's not as bad as some may think. That's all.
Well, I also want to say, listen, if you're going to get some things from the fan base here, it's your platform too. Feel free to rebuttal any of these. Absolutely. Dave says, what else is he going to praise? Sauce, A-Rod. They got a good team, man. They got a lot of good players. I think my biggest concern, if I was a Jets fan, is I think the Jets are relying on a lot of aging players that are coming off of injury. And maybe it works out really well, but it's that would be a little worrisome for me if I was a Jets fan, relying on some of the age players that are coming off those injuries. But we'll see how it plays out.
That's a fair concern. The only thing, like last year in particular, especially on the offensive line, they didn't really have the depth after that. Like they were relying on Dwayne Brown to play left tackle.
Yes.
He was horrible, and then he gets hurt. Tyron Smith, who you bring in, went on the field, we know is very, very good, but he misses time every year. They used the first round pick in Olu fashion. So I think they're better prepared this year than they were a year ago. If some of those guys, as you mentioned, who are older do get banged up at some point.
I do like Fashanu a lot. I think he's going to be a really good player in this league. And I think him playing a few games may not be the worst thing in the world for his development. So Blake says, I would talk ish about the Jets, but their play does it for me. Here's $5 for a Niner hat. All right. I'm going to get to these other ones here in a minute. We got a show to run. Okay. Give me a player on the Jets that has the most to prove, and how do you think that will impact the way that he plays this upcoming Monday?
Yeah, I mean, I know this is going to be a very chalk answer, but I don't know how you don't go Aaron Rodgers here, just because, coming off the injury, and we really haven't seen him as a member of the Jets. Like, Jet fans have been so excited about this guy since March of 2023. And all we have so far is 4 plays of him. So there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on him in this game. And obviously want to get through more than just the 4 plays, but also show that you could still play at a high level. The Jets believe that he can. I think they've done a good job surrounding him with talent and a better offensive line. So it's really up to him at this point to prove that he is still the guy. And, there's a lot of pressure on him. And I know he hasn't played well against the 49ers in the playoffs. In the regular season, he's fared a little bit better. So we'll see, but very tough test out of the gate. And probably on paper, at least, I would say this is Jets' toughest game on the schedule.
Yeah, I think Aaron Rodgers is a totally fair answer. I remember last year, I was so excited for that game against the Buffalo Bills, and I was traveling, and I had just gotten off the plane, getting ready to go home, and all of a sudden the tweets start flying, Aaron Rodgers out of the game, and immediately it was a torn Achilles. It was pretty obvious, and it was I don't really root for other teams. Obviously, I'm a 49er fan, but I do root for fan bases. I got to admit, fan bases like Cleveland Browns fan base. There's some other one, Detroit Lions. Jets are kind of in there until now. They've been on me a little bit the last couple of weeks, but Jets fan base was a fan base last year. I was certainly rooting for. It's like, man, give these guys something good. They need something. And then Aaron Rodgers goes down right away, and Zach Wilson had to come in. I think Aaron Rodgers, I don't know if he'll be as good as what he once was, but one thing we do know about Aaron Rodgers is he's not going to turn the ball over very much at all throughout the course of the season. And I think just protecting the ball, allowing Breece Hall to do his thing, hopefully he can stay healthy as well, and then that defense can just be dominant, that's enough to win a lot of games in this league. And that's also a strategy that travels in the playoffs. So I think that Aaron Rodgers can at least be that. And if he somehow returns to form, then it's like, man, this team could be very, very interesting. But week one, I don't know how to look out the gates. It might take him a while to get up to speed. He's looked really good in the training camp clips that I've seen, but he hasn't played football in a very, very long time. So I'm curious to see what it looks like for him.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really good point there, and it almost, in a way, and it makes sense seeing who the Jets head coach is and Robert Saleh, in a lot of ways reminds me of the 49ers, because I think this team is going to be built around having an elite defense. They're going to want to run the ball a lot. And if Rodgers is even just average, I think it's going to be a big improvement. They've won 7 games the last 2 years with by far the worst quarterback room and set of starters in the NFL. So even if Rodgers is the 15th best quarterback, I don't know how their record doesn't improve by 3-4 games just there. And then after that, if he gets back to that MVP form, which I'm not going to go that far and say he's going to be MVP, but if he could be, again, top half of the league quarterback, I think that's when the Jets could really do damage.
Yeah, I think for the 49ers, a player that has the most to prove, and it's not like this player isn't good. We know this player is very, very good, but he missed all offseason. There was a major contract dispute, and he's going against one of the best corners in the league. If for some reason the 49ers lost this game and Brandon Ayuk has like 3 catches for 14 yards, the fan base is going to be on him. They're going to be at his neck. So that is something that I'm going to be looking forward to. What does it look like for Brandon Ayuk? And listen, if Brandon Ayuk had a whole offseason, I think game plan wise, the 49ers would probably use him a little bit more as a decoy, run off Sauce, get him out of the area and allow other guys to work anyways. So I don't know that this game was ever primed for him to have a big game, but the fact that he just got big time money, there was that struggle, that dispute. And you know how it is, some fans choose the ownership to back, and we're all about backing the name on the front of the jersey, not the back. Other fans back the player. So you have a little bit of a struggle there. But if Ayuk struggles and this team loses, I don't think it'll be pretty for the first week of the season for him. So I hope for his sake he has a really good game. And he certainly does have a lot to prove to a big chunk of this fan base that is upset with how he handled the offseason negotiations.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to happen anytime there's a negotiation like that. It gets really ugly. The Jets are dealing with that right now, obviously, with Haason Reddick. And some fan bases, or some of the fan bases backing the player. The other part is backing, the team and Joe Douglas and ownership and the whole thing. So it's really tough. And for Ayuk, for his sake, coming out of the gate and performing right away would kind of get the fan bases, the fan base that turned on him back in his good graces. So I'm curious to see how he performs in week one. But as you mentioned with Sauce Gardner this year, the Jets are going to travel him a little bit more. They haven't really done that his first 2 years. So my assumption is Sauce is going to be on Ayuk a lot. So we'll see how much he's utilized in the passing attack for the 49ers.
Absolutely. We got Brother Bob coming back, and he says Dave's best thing the Jets have is the corny Jets chant.
It's good.
I like the chant. I like the chant. Dave says, and even that's awful, but I can't give him a lot. There's actually some good questions here from Dazza. He has a couple of them. He says, sure. What's happening with Haason Reddick this year, and how long will he hold out for?
Yeah, tough, man. I don't know when the end. It could happen 5 minutes from now. It could happen 5 weeks from now. It's just been really quiet on that front. If I had to give a guess, I don't think he's playing in this game at this point. I think we'd have had to report already. Maybe after week one, at some point, he comes back in. Chris Jones last year with the Chiefs missed the first game of the year and then reported and ended up playing a really good season, and they would go on and win the Super Bowl. But I'm not going to lie to you. It is something that is a concern. I just don't see from his perspective how it makes sense to hold out a full season, because then you just end up right back where you started because you don't accrue that season, and he would still be on that same contract and with the Jets again. So I don't know how that benefits him.
Yeah, as soon as I read the question, that was the first thing I thought of was Chris Jones last year. I'm like, I bet you if it happens, it's going to happen after week one. Like they'll have the holdout. then they'll come together. They'll figure it out. To me, I don't know what the salary cap looks like for the Jets, but when you have a player that's in a situation like this, I think the best middle ground is, hey, let's just up your guaranteed money, give you more money this year, and then allow you to be a free agent next year. And I'm sure that's been discussed. I don't know what the number is that the Jets can actually allow, but I just feel like that's a really good, let's meet in the middle. You're still 29 years old. You can go out and have a hell of a season yet again for another team. Then you can go get yourself a big time 3-year deal somewhere else, and we'll pay you more money this year. I feel like that should be the answer to the question. Like I said, these guys are professionals. I'm sure they've talked about it, but it just seems so easy to me. Like, why not that?
Yeah, you're asking all the right questions. That's something that I've said for a while. I would go as far, I would tack on an additional year and add on in 2025, but anything after that, I don't really want to get involved with, because that's when guys like Sauce Gardner and Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, like they're all going to have to get new contracts. But if they were to redo the money for this year and then maybe tack on in another year, I think that fits well with the Aaron Rodgers window that the Jets are working with. But in a perfect world, as you said, just, up the guarantee money for this year. They can do it. They restructured some deals yesterday as well before we got the news on the Michael Carter contract. So I really don't know what the holdup is. I would think it would be something that is that simple, but unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be the case.
Absolutely. Charles says, just became a YouTube member. Appreciate you. Actually, hold on. There was a super chat that I missed. The question was from Daza, and it was about Javon Hargrave. Like, what is the realistic expectation for Javon Hargrave? Now, Hargrave certainly had a down year last year. Self-admittedly was out of shape, which is frustrating to go out and pay a player like that and have him come in out of shape on a team that was trying to win a Super Bowl. I think the expectation is that he performs like a legit top 5 interior pass rusher this year. That's what he was brought in to do. That's the expectation. And he came in much better shape, according to him. So go out and be that dominant interior pass rusher. You've got a guy like Bosa right next to you to help you out. There's no reason why he can't get back to form the way that he was with the Eagles 2 years ago. That's the expectation.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. Just from everything that he was able to do in Philly, I don't see why he can't get back to being that player.
Brother Bob says, Matt is pondering, will the Jets lose by 9 or 19? Take the over, bro. And then Matt comes in with...
Come on. These two teams are two great defenses. Take the under and the Jets with the points. This is a field goal game one way or the other.
Matt says, I hate this matchup. Comes down to the Jets D-line versus our O-line, and he laughs at that. And then the Jets running game versus our defense. Jets win 20-17. Well, there you go. There's a Niner fan coming in and picking the Jets. So
this might be my favorite Niner fan so far. I like it.
Oh, man. All right, let's talk about a matchup or two. Matt gave us one that he's worried about, or a couple he's worried about. Give me first a matchup that concerns you when it comes to the Jets and the 49ers in this game.
Yeah, so I don't know if this one will come as a surprise to you or not, but for me, I look at George Kittle as the guy that I might be most worried about, because the Jets, they have a great defense, but at times they have shown that they could get beat by a tight end. David Njoku at the end of the year had a really big game against them on a Thursday night game in Cleveland. And granted, like, the Jets were already out of it at that point. It was a Trevor Siemian start. Like, I get why the defense didn't have the best games, but if you look at, the Jets corner room and their linebackers and the defensive line, that's where I'm really comfortable. But at safety, I think they really lack that true great free safety to keep up with a guy like Kittle. And I just don't think he's someone that I'd feel comfortable putting a linebacker on. And Quincy Williams, who's the better of the two cover linebackers between him and CJ Mosley, I think is going to have his hands full with McCaffrey out of the backfield. So I think Kittle could end up finding himself open at times and making some plays in this game.
All right. I'm going to agree with Matt here on the run defense. The 49ers are without Dre Greenlaw, who is a menace in the run game for the 49ers defensively. They lost Eric Armstead, who is one of the better interior run defenders in the league. And it's not that I'm worried like I know it's going to go bad. I'm just worried in a curious fashion. There were times last year, the 49ers boat raced so many teams that teams had to stop running early. But there were times where games got close, teams were able to stick to the run game, and it gave the 49ers fits at times. I'm curious to see what it looks like up the middle of this defense and can they contain the run? And I don't think there's a better way to find out than versus the Jets and Breece Hall, because Breece Hall is a do-it-all running back. He can run with power. He can run with speed. He truly is a special, special player in this league. And I'm curious to see if the 49ers can slow him down. And if they can't, and then Aaron Rodgers can come in and throw, 24, 25 passes, complete 60%, not turn the ball over. I think this game can be very, very tight. And I would prefer that the 49ers aren't in a tight game week one. I don't want to get the nails bitten down to the nail bed. So I think the run game of the Jets is a concern of mine and really more of a curious concern. Can the 49ers consistently stop a great running team like the Jets?
Yeah, I love that. And to just piggyback off of that, I think that is going to be the Jets' game plan in this game. I think they're going to run the crap out of the ball, and not just with Breece Hall. I just mentioned Braylon Allen earlier in the show. He looked really, really good in training camp, and I think they're going to try to ease Rodgers back in. Everyone's excited about the Rodgers and Garrett Wilson connection, myself included. I love Garrett Wilson. But I think they're just going to try to run the ball, eat as much clock as possible, and play great defense in this game. If they were to win, I think that's the recipe for the Jets to do so.
Absolutely. Now let's go positive. Give me a matchup that, as a Jets fan, you're very confident in heading into week one versus the San Francisco 49ers.
So for me, I think it's the Jets interior defensive line against the interior offensive line of the 49ers. I think Quinnen Williams is setting up to have a really good day. And, he's obviously super important as both a pass rusher and against the run. But also, I mean, you guys are very familiar with Javon Kinlaw is now going to be playing next to Quinnen Williams. So a little bit of a revenge factor there, maybe going up against his former team. Robert Saleh loves the guy. He's talked him up all training camp and throughout the preseason. And, I think it's a big test for him in week one to see kind of how he, acclimates to the Jets. And they rotate their defensive line a lot too. So they like to keep their pass rushers fresh. But for me, I look at the Jets interior rush, and I think that's maybe an area where they could wreak some havoc in this game.
Absolutely. I'm curious to see, was Kinlaw healthy all offseason? Was he at all the practices? Like, was there anything? Because he's had some knee issues off and on. Really, the first 3 years he was in the league, he wasn't involved in training camp for the most part because he just couldn't make it through the offseason healthy.
Yeah, he was a full participant, and they actually talked about him adding 30 pounds of muscle this offseason, which sounds like a crazy amount. But from my understanding, injuries and being a little bit of a lighter player was some of his issues with the San Francisco 49ers. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of, again, I'm curious to see how that plays out. We don't know because we haven't seen him in the regular season yet at this new weight. So again, I don't think he's ever going to be someone who's great against the run, but maybe he just won't get pushed around as much by some of those bigger interior linemen is my thought.
Yeah, Javon Kinlaw is interesting. I can tell you he's one of the bigger men in the league. I mean, he looks the part for sure. And that was even being lighter last year. But last year was the first time that he was able to make it through a whole training camp healthy. And you saw the benefits. And then also it was helpful for him to be a rotational player last year, helped him get through the season. I don't know about him as a starter. Now, Quinnen Williams is just so good that I feel like you can plug in any mid-level player next to him and it'll be okay. But if he was healthy again this offseason and was able to put back on the muscle the way that he looked in college, he might be able to be a difference maker for y'all. So I'm not rooting for him this game, but for the rest of the season, I really do hope he has a good season and is able to get paid again. His story it's a crazy one. I'm sure you guys have heard of it. But he's been through a lot, man. And it's hard not to root for a guy like that. So hopefully things go well for him. I'll give you a matchup that I'm confident in as a 49er fan. I think, you look at the defensive backs on this team and they're phenomenal. And the best way to avoid them is to just work up the middle with guys like George Kittle. You mentioned George Kittle. CMC is the best receiving back in the game. And then you got Juice, who little known player, he's a fullback, plays a position that's not the sexy position. And a lot of teams don't even carry fullbacks, but Juice is the best fullback in the league. Very good route runner, very good pass catcher. I think utilizing those guys in the short game, getting them matched up with the safeties and the linebackers, that is a path to success for the San Francisco 49ers. So I'll say those three versus anybody up the middle that the Jets can throw at them in coverage. I think those are matchups that I'll be looking for the 49ers to win. And I think they're going to need to win that matchup in order to win this game.
Yeah, and I think the same thing. I think that's really fair. I mentioned Kittle as a potential concern. McCaffrey is so good out of the backfield. And in years gone by, I would say previous to last year, the Jets really, really struggled with backs. They got better at it last year because Quincy Williams really emerged as someone who was pretty much their go-to guy to cover out of the backfield. But McCaffrey's the best at coming out of the backfield. We're, as Jet fans, hoping that Breece Hall can maybe take that step and get close to that same level as a pass catcher out of the backfield this year. But yeah, those are two key things that I think are going to be big. And especially too, if the Jets defense is, the front four is trying to get home and maybe winning on the interior, I think Purdy's going to try to get the ball out quick. So underneath crossing patterns, things like that, I wouldn't be surprised to see at all from San Fran.
Before we get to the next topic, I do want to give a shout out to the sponsor of the channel, Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy right now has a great promo running. Use promo code LSS to sign up. Link is in the description. It's pinned to the top of the chat as well. If you use my promo code, you'll get one free pick. That pick this week is Travis Kelce to get 1 receiving yard. You add him to any of your over-unders, and it's an automatic win. And right now, they are matching 50% deposit match up to $1,000. Showing our sponsor love is showing the channel love. Appreciate you, Underdog, for being a sponsor. All right, Matt, let's get into some bold predictions. So I don't want just any bold prediction. I want a bold prediction that is going to make my chat be like, no way he actually thinks that's going to happen. What is something that you think can happen in this game that's bold that will surprise Niner fans?
Ooh, would Breece Hall having more yards from scrimmage than Christian McCaffrey be enough to get the chat riled up, you think?
I think it might. Might.
Okay, I don't know if that's bold enough, but I'll say that because as I mentioned, I think the Jets are going to really rely on the ground game in this one and Rodgers getting the ball out quickly. As I mentioned too, I think Kittle's going to be really the main focus point, but Jets defense, I think, comes out strong. I think Breece Hall has over 100. We'll go 125, 150 all-purpose yards in this game and ends up leading the way. And McCaffrey has, I'll go just under 100, just under 100.
Okay. I was going to go with the passing game, and I was going to say that Brock Purdy will thoroughly outplay Aaron Rodgers in this game.
Right.
Now obviously we know Aaron Rodgers is coming off the injury, but I think fans across the league just look at the names and say, oh, it's Aaron Rodgers, man. This is multiple time MVP, Super Bowl winner, and fantastic player in his prime. I don't know how close he is to that anymore, but Brock Purdy's on the come up, man. And right now I give Aaron Rodgers the benefit of the doubt in my quarterback rankings. I think I have him around 8 or so, and I have Brock Purdy around 10, just because you have to give a multiple time MVP the benefit of the doubt until he proves he just doesn't have it anymore. However, I think in this game, we talked about some of the matchups that favor the San Francisco 49ers in the passing game, the way they like to play football, and how that counteracts what the Jets are good at and possibly weak at defense. I think it sets up for Brock Purdy to have a damn good game, very efficient, maybe a couple touchdowns, nothing special, not like a 400-yard game, 3 touchdowns, anything crazy. But I think in this game, if he could throw for like 230 and 2 touchdowns, that would be a thoroughly good game from him. And I think Aaron Rodgers might struggle statistically a little bit. I don't know that he'll turn the ball over, but I could see a game where he throws for like 180, no touchdowns, and clearly, 230, 2 touchdowns is thoroughly outplaying. So I'll go with Brock Purdy to look like the clear better quarterback on Monday Night Football.
All right. And if the 49ers try to throw a little bit more, I could see that, because I mean, you were talking about a scenario where maybe Rodgers is throwing only 25 times, and I think it would be tough for him to get over 200 yards if he's throwing it only 25 times. I don't think, at least not in this matchup, I don't think the Jets will be taking many shots down the field. I expect a much more vanilla offense, and that's why I made my Breece Hall prediction. I think he's going to be close to 20 carries, probably 5 to 7 catches as well. So I could see it.
All right, let's get to these super chats real quick. Dave Barclay says, you will hear Kittle over the middle many times. I hope so. I got him super late in fantasy, and I'm obviously a 49er fan, but I want to win in fantasy leagues as well. So yeah, give me George Kittle for a great game. I'll take it. Matt says, okay, quick question for everybody, including the chat. Who gives up more sacks? Colton McKivitz, he calls him McGiveth, or Jake Brendel? Quinnen Williams is going to feast. I say Brendel. I have actually do have a question for you. Our right tackle, Colton McKivitz, he calls him McGiveth here, shouldn't be a starter in this league, in my opinion. But Haason Reddick would normally line up over the right tackle a lot. He's not going to be there. Now, I know that you drafted Will McDonald a couple years ago, Brock Purdy, former teammate of his. How has his development come along, and what did the edge rushers look like moving on from a very good pass rusher who ended up with the Eagles, oddly enough, and then you go and trade for Haason Reddick, who's likely not going to be there? Can the Jets generate a pass rush, in your opinion, from the edge position without Haason Reddick on the field? And who would it come from?
So Jermaine Johnson, I think, is going to be on the other side. So it wouldn't be him. And Jermaine had a really, really big year too last year. It was a Pro Bowler. But so that's where I'm a little bit concerned on the other side, because Will McDonald, I don't think, is ready to be an every down player yet. But last year, he only played, I think it was 19% of snaps. It was a really low number, but his pass rushing stats were very good. So I could totally see him this year playing, maybe it's closer to like 40%, and they putting him in obvious pass rush situations, 2nd and long, 3rd and long, trying to get off the field. So I would think McDonald would get those reps in this game, but on early downs, it's going to be Michael Clemens, who is his strength is against the run. He gives you virtually nothing as a pass rusher. The Jets also lost John Franklin Myers this offseason, which I think is an underrated loss that not a lot of people are talking about. He was very good against the run and an underrated pass rusher, but that's a spot that's a little bit of a concern. The opposite starter at edge, opposite of Jermaine Johnson. We're comfortable there, but Clemens on early downs isn't going to give you much as a pass rusher, and McDonald is just unproven. The talent is there, but we haven't really seen it on a consistent level yet. That's all.
Well, it'll be weakness versus weakness, because I'm telling you, Colton McKivitz is a bottom 5 starting right tackle in the league. So maybe Jets fans can come out of this feeling very excited about Will McDonald and his production in this game. I think that there's a path to that potentially happening. So I'm curious to see how that matchup plays out on 3rd downs. Dave Barclay says, Matt, I think Brendel is the worst in the league. Yeah, I will say this, center position, really everything outside of Trent Williams is in major flux. We're very excited about Dominic Pooney, the now starting right guard, because of some injuries that they've had, but he's a rookie. This is his first time going against real first string competition for a full game. He was fantastic in the preseason, fantastic in training camp, but this is real now. So not that we're worried about it, but we want to see him be good before we can crown him as good. But I will say, our left guard, Aaron Banks, really took a step back last year. And it seems like in training camp, he continued to regress. Center position is not something we're excited about. Right tackle is not something we're excited about. That is the one weakness. You can't be great at everything, and the 49ers are good at almost everything, but But that one position group, man, the offensive line outside of Trent Williams is a disaster. So I'm curious to see how it plays out. Matt says 49ers win if 2021 Debo shows up and Mason gets some legit carries. Love BA, but missing the whole offseason worries me. But if BA shows out there, better be no more BA bashing from the fan base. Yeah, it was really back and forth. This question, I think, is a good one. Kenny says, Jesse and Mike, what's one player off of each team you would love to have to make your teams better? So if you had to take one player from the 49ers, who would it be and why?
Oh, that is a really, really good one. I think I'd want to go with Ayuk because I think the Jets, you can make a case that they lack that like one more stud wide receiver. Garrett Wilson's awesome, but Mike Williams is coming off an ACL injury. There's some concerns with him, how productive he'll be early on. And then after that, there's a lot of question marks. Allen Lazard was really, really bad last year, fell off a lot from his time in Green Bay. And then there's some young guys, Xavier Gibson, who was an undrafted free agent from a year ago that showed some flashes, but again, we don't really know his ceiling. And they drafted Malachi Corley, who often gets compared to Deebo Samuel. I hope he can get to what prime Deebo looked like, early on in his career. But that's asking a lot from, a third round rookie for him to come in and produce right away. I think if the Jets had, a really stud receiver to pair with Garrett Wilson, that'd make me a lot more comfortable with this team.
That's a good one. I did not expect you to go there. I thought you would have said like Bosa or Warner or something like that. Okay, the Jets, first of all, pairing Breece Hall with Christian McCaffrey would be a lot of fun. I'm not going to lie about that. That's intriguing. Haason Reddick, I technically he's a Jet. I know he hasn't played, but opposite of Bosa would be fantastic. Obviously, we know Sauce would be incredible, but the 49ers secondary is really taking a major step forward this offseason. I think that's the strength of this defense going into the early part of the season. The answer is Quinnen Williams. I mean, you get in Quinnen Williams, who's going to guarantee that you don't have issues stopping the run up the middle. And then it frees up Hargrave to go just be a pure pass rusher next to Bosa. It's just, that would be the guy that I would have to take. And oh my God, I would love to have Quinnen Williams on this team. I really would. Fantastic player.
Yeah, he's been unbelievable, man. I think he's right up there with Dexter Lawrence as, two of the best interior guys in the league.
Yeah. Dexter Lawrence is fantastic too. Matt McEwen says 49ers need to bully the Jets defense. Jets defense gets frustrated when they get punched in the mouth. And then Dave says, okay, honestly, is the Jets O-line any good? This is a very good question. I think, Mekhi Becton ended up being a bit of a bust for y'all. He couldn't stay healthy. He's now playing guard over with Philadelphia. Interesting. They took quite a few players from you guys, but he's playing guard over in Philadelphia. But you guys have really gone out and revamped this offensive line. You got a new left tackle, a new right tackle. You go out and draft another guy in the first round. What does this offensive line as a whole look like? Is it that much improved, and are you confident in it?
So it is vastly different than a year ago. From the Jets opening day starting offensive line last year to this year, there are 4 new starters. Connor McGovern was a starting center to start the year. He ends up getting hurt. Rookie Joe Tippmann comes in. The only returning guy is Elijah Vera Tucker. So for me, I think the biggest thing is the 2 tackles going from Mekhi Becton, who just was not healthy, and Dwayne Brown to Tyron Smith, even at his age and with the injuries, and Morgan Moses is such a big upgrade. But we mentioned it earlier, the addition of Olu Fashanu in the first round to be the contingency plan for if and when any one of those 2 guys get hurt. You can plug in someone who went 11th overall. A lot of people thought was the best pure pass blocking tackle in this draft class. So I feel comfortable there. And then, Laken Tomlinson very well. He was the Jets starting left guard for them previous 2 years. He was awful. He was nothing like the San Francisco 49ers version. I was very envious of what he was at the end of his 49ers career and what he was for the Jets. He was horrible. They replaced him with John Simpson, so that should be an upgrade there. the Jets were a bottom 5 offensive line in the league. I don't think they're going to be a bottom 5 offensive line again. I think their ceiling is high, but even their floor, I think, is somewhere around, we'll just say, even a middle of the pack offensive line, which is a big upgrade from where they were a year ago.
Yeah, most certainly. I think that was it was clear they put a lot of effort into improving it. We'll see how it actually plays out, but I would expect for them to be much better. Cryptic says last season Purdy struggled against good defenses, the Browns, Ravens, etc., looking like perfect weather. Can this also be a come up game for him to improve? Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's such a small sample size with Brock Purdy overall. And so I think every little bit of data that you can get is important. And right now, in some of the against some of the better defenses, it hasn't looked great. But again, we're talking about such a small sample size. There's another small sample size that says he's not great in rainy weather, but we don't know that either of those are actually true. You know, missing Trent Williams didn't help in some of those games. And so, yes, I think playing against a good Jets defense, even if the weather's good, even if it's at home, I think if he plays well, it can be a real confidence booster. And it just gives us one more piece of data to figure out who is Brock Purdy really, especially as we're trying to figure out, is he worth giving $60 million to? So yes, certainly if Brock Purdy plays well, that would be great. And I think it would be a data point that all 49er fans would be excited to obtain. So
yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think the Jets have a really good chance to be a top 5 defense this year. So if he puts up good numbers against a defense that, you know, ranks that high, I think you could absolutely take that as a positive.
Matt says he would love to have Sauce with Demo and Ward. Oh my freaking gosh. I know that trust me, there's some guys I would love to have. And then Harris says, who has a better game, Fred Warner or CJ Mosley? How good is CJ Mosley anymore anyways? I mean, I know the defense is good. Obviously I know the name is a fantastic player, but is he still that good of a linebacker or is he just kind of a name now? What do you think?
So I definitely think Quincy Williams is the better of the 2 linebackers on the Jets, but Mosley's lost a step, but not enough to, like, he's not bad. He's still, I would say, fringe top 10 linebacker is
Okay.
where I would have him. His football IQ and his football smarts, it just really makes up a lot. And he really is the leader and quarterback of that defense. So I think he has value in that department. But to me, I think especially last year, Quincy Williams was the better of the 2 linebackers. Fred Warner, for my money, is the best linebacker in the NFL. So I would say probably Fred Warner, but I think, you know, Quincy isn't really too far behind, and CJ Mosley around maybe top 10 to 12 linebacker in the sport.
Okay. All right. That's good. Good to hear. Like I said, it's so hard to track everybody around the league, and obviously fantastic player in his prime. It's just, you don't really get to see a lot of Jets games, and I know he's a little bit older, and so I'm just curious to see how good of a linebacker he is, but borderline top 10 is still pretty damn good. So, all right, Matt, it's that time. It's time to give our score prediction. So, along with your score prediction, tell me how the Jets get it done, assuming that that's who you're taking. And if you aren't taking them to get it done, tell me what it is that holds them back from winning in week 1. What's your score prediction for this game?
Okay. So I am going to take the 49ers in this game, 20-17. Low scoring game, like I said. Take the Jets with the points if it's at 4 points. I think it's a field goal game either way. I will say if the Jets are to win this game, I think it's going to be tighter than some of the chat thinks. I think it's going to be a very tight game, 1-score game. If the Jets were to win, I think they need to get pressure Brock Purdy and get him to make mistakes and create turnovers. If that's the case, then, you know, extra possessions, run the ball, hog the ball, play keep away, play good defense, create turnovers. I know it's very cliche, but I think that's what it would take. To me, again, as I said, I think this is the toughest game on the Jets schedule, and it's right out of the gate in week 1, which is frustrating. I didn't love that, seeing that when the schedule came out, but I think we get a great game. I'm not going to count the Jets out. I'm not the kind of guy who's going to predict them to go 17-0. I do think they lose some games this year, and unfortunately, 49ers, great team. I think they get it done at home.
Let me ask you this. If the game's tight and the Jets get the ball with, I don't know, a minute 45, all 3 timeouts, down 4, are you confident that they can go and get that game-winning drive and that game-winning touchdown? How would you feel about that scenario if it came down to it?
I would feel pretty optimistic. Not saying like 100%, 100% they're
For sure, yeah.
But I do feel confident in Aaron Rodgers and their plan offensively. Just going from, you gotta understand with what Jet fans have watched at the quarterback position the last few years, and just it's going to be a night and day difference from having to deal with, Zach Wilson and Trevor Siemian and Tim Boyle and on and on and on it goes. But I know Rodgers is older. He might not be, the top 5 guy that he was for so long, but man, like we see it in training camp, those throws are still there. So I think he still has some special moments left in the tank, and he lives for those moments. So I would feel pretty comfortable with the Jets having a chance to go down the field and score and win the game.
This is why I love doing behind enemy lines, and this is why I try to reach out to realistic people. It's tough. It's tough to pick against your team when you got a chat full of fans that are especially excited about week 1 and a whole offseason coming to this culmination of seeing Aaron Rodgers finally make it through a full game. And to pick against that is extremely level-headed. I think the game is going to be very close as well. Obviously, I know the 49ers aren't going undefeated either. There's going to be some games where I'm going to have to pick them to lose this season, but I don't believe this is one of them. I just think that the 49ers have so much momentum going into this over the last week, bringing in all the great players that they have, whether it's through contract disputes or getting them back from injury. A home game with a lot to prove, a team that might have the Super Bowl hangover, and can they continue to climb up this mountain? I think they come out with their hair on fire, ready for this one. And I think it's close. I would probably take the Jets with the points as well. And I've got a similar score. I've got it 20-16, San Francisco 49ers. This is going to be a defensive game. I could see a scenario where the 49ers come out, they score on the first drive. That's the scripted plays. They usually do well there. And it feels like the momentum of the crowd, it just feels like this could be a blowout. But the game slows down a little bit, a couple 3-and-outs back and forth, and all of a sudden the game is a defensive battle. That touchdown early was enough for them to hold off the Jets, but I do think it's close. 20-16, San Francisco.
Yeah, I love it. I think these are 2 really good teams, and who knows, maybe this won't be the only time they meet this year.
Yeah. Hey, listen, man, I wouldn't mind facing the Jets again, because that means the 49ers are in the Super Bowl. So I would absolutely love that. It doesn't matter who the 49ers face, rather, although I don't know if I want to play the Chiefs again. That just seems to be a matchup that doesn't work out for us. But in the Super Bowl, that would be great. Dave says, if game was in New York, would the odds be even? I think the Jets would probably be like, it would be a pick 'em. It'd be like a half-point spread, I would imagine. Usually get 2.5 to 3 at home. So it's close to a pick 'em as is. Basically, they're saying 49ers are like a 2-point favorite. You flip that to New York, I think you'd probably be at an actual pick 'em. And then all day, every day, Kim says 48ers could have had Quinnen Williams instead of Nick. Who would you rather have? Don't be biased. Nick Bosa. I love Quinnen Williams, but Nick Bosa is the right choice for the 49ers. I do want to say this as we close this thing out. Great behind enemy lines to start things off. Matt's channel is in the description. We've got, 365 Niner fans watching this thing. It'd be nice to have 365 new subscribers over on Matt's channel. Link is in the description. Go check him out. If nothing else, if it's just to troll him after week 1, I'm sure he'll take it. Give him some love, man. He just gave us an hour of his time. Matt, thank you so much for kicking off this season for us. Good luck to your Jets this Monday night. Not too much good luck, but good luck to the rest of the season as well. Thank you so much for joining me, man.
Absolutely. It was a blast talking Jets 49ers with you. And like I said, hopefully we get to do it again right before a Super Bowl. But yeah, same good luck to your 49ers as well.
All right. Thank you, guys. Have a blessed evening. We'll be back soon.